Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Awaken the World. We are live when? Right now. It is the 18th of April. Boy, it's hard to believe so much of the year has already gone by. 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Where to turn? Knowing the road, following the signs. Hi. It's actually been quite the day today. Usually Sundays are sort of like our, totally free, no sort of deal going on days. And it was busy today, and I am exceptionally grateful for all the people who passed through our house today. And I don't mean that there were many, okay, but there were a few. And I'm just grateful to have them here. Grateful to be able to lend whatever help I can. Grateful to put food in their bellies, to make them a nice cup of Garen's special Ovaltine coffee. And you can't miss on the health benefits of Ovaltine, because if you get just the plain product, I mean, there's like a third of your vitamin C in a tablespoon of the stuff. It's wonderful. I love it. But the point is it was just one of those days where it didn't matter what you have planned, life has other plans. And when you succumb to that, when you accept it and surrender to it and say, no, 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 I know life knows better, you find yourself gratified at the end of the day. You find yourself in a position where you are grateful for the people who came, for the warm body you got to hug for a moment and make them feel better too in the process. Because of course, hugging is a beautiful two-way communication that benefits both the hugger and the huggee. So, as always, let me start by expressing my love for each and every one of you. You're exactly where you need to be right now. You're exactly who you need to be right now. And the good news is it's actually quite perfect. It's offering you every opportunity to choose again for yourself from a place of your own personal knowing and power. And I know this can be a little difficult. So today we're going to talk, coincidentally, about knowing the road and, knowing when to turn or where to turn. And this is really almost a non-conversation in some ways, because there is no way for you to get off the path of life. As I said to the one group member today, you can choose to not work on yourself, and really that's just using words. There's really nothing to work on. What you're really doing is more polishing a mirror clean. That really is the closest analogy to what you're here doing. You're here polishing off the collective programming that you bought into and returning you to that childlike state. And that is a beautiful place to be. So, the talk. Here we go. As I said, there is no way in this world to get out of your life. Even if you choose to do nothing and one day die through abusing your body in whatever ways, it doesn't really matter what the case. One, you're only going to die when you're meant to die. And two, dying is not dying, because you're not going to die. You just won't. I hate to tell you that. There's no way out. There's no way out of living. Living is the state of everything. Life is everything. Creation is all about life, and life is just reflective of all of that creative consciousness. That never-ending drive towards more and more creative and beautiful expressions of itself. So no matter where you perceive yourself on your journey today, you need to know that you've never, ever, ever fallen off the path. Maybe a lot of times you've chosen to take the dark, nasty, thorny, bramble covered path. I think we've all done that many a time. And there are other times when you chose to walk on the flat ground in the sun. And sometimes that sun got too hot. And then you chose to walk in the shade. Maybe you didn't choose at all and you feel like you literally tumbled down the side of the cliff. That's okay too. Where you land is still the path. Now, along the road of life, along the path, along the journey that we are on, you are infinitely loved. And you're being not warned isn't the right word. You're being offered a lot of love and a lot of signs and a lot of help along the way. But a lot of times we're not paying attention to the signs. And the reason that we do that is that we're too busy pushing up against whatever's right in front of us. Right? And if you remember from a long time ago, we did a video on this whole thing. One of the unique things about pushing up against something is that you have to be really close to it to push against it. You can't be, I can't push against this piece of paper if it's out of the way of my hand. I have to be up here. And the larger that I make this in my own head, through my not wanting it to be here, the more I push up against it, until pretty soon I've got my whole body involved in the process of pushing up against it. What happens to my vision? You don't see those signs. You don't see those loving posts, a lot of them with neon flashing lights, that are trying to say to you, change course, change direction. This isn't going where you think it is going. So the first step, of course, is to let go of pushing up against anything that's already here. Because if it's already present, all the stuff that made it present now occurred in the past. It's long done. Whatever's right there now, apparently blocking your path, is a manifestation, a monument, an effigy to what came before. We need to honor those blocks that we put in our path, because they're not really meant to stop us or to make us stumble. They're the blocks we put there along the way in our growth and understanding how we co-create our reality. And co-creating your reality begins with a conscious choice to adopt the same point of view that the Creator has. And that is an infinite and unwavering love for every single one of your or its creations. And when you adopt that same attitude, when you begin to love every single one of your creations, you will begin to understand and see how you're co-creating your life becomes easier and easier and easier. A lot of the co-creation that we do is unconscious, and we do that through the ways we happen to think about ourselves. And of course, that's all wrapped up in our false concept of who and what we are. It's very easy to get into the idea that you're this body, even though this body is made up of trillions upon trillions, roughly 70 trillion separate individual parts. Each one of those parts working, communicating with other parts, and yet to you, you're one being. The same is true for all of humanity, of course. The example I used today was imagine a big primordial amoeba, a giant one, big enough to eat a horse, kind of sludging along the ground like the blob. If you look closely at any individual parts of that whole, there are parts within that blob that are actually moving backwards, and parts within that blob that are not moving at all, and parts that are moving to the left and parts that are moving to the right. And yet, when we take our vision out of that close-up and we look at the whole blob, we see it is indeed making progress forward. So no matter where you are on your path right now, knowing where to turn is about being in a place of personal peace with exactly where you are on the trail right now. You see, there are no shoulds and no should nots. So no matter what you're up to right now, it's exactly what needs to be. The only question is whether you will make it about blame, which, as I've said before, is a never-ending spiral that none of us can get out of, or you're willing to make it about responsibility. And in that responsibility, to begin to reclaim your power. And that power is your right to choose for yourself. Free of fear, free of guilt, free of recrimination, free of shoulds and should nots, but the ability to lovingly choose for yourself where to turn. A lot of times life will give us signs not meant to necessarily deter us from going down a particular trail, but more from the point of view that we may not be fully prepared for the experience we're about to embark on. And you're always offered the opportunity to hang back for a moment, if you will. Take a little extra time to get ready before heading down that path. Now, this sounds kind of ephemeral. I mean, I'm saying these words, but what about an example that makes some sense? So, borrowing on some of the experiences from today, if you were in a situation where you were experiencing the same sort of relationship over and over and over again, sooner or later you're going to come to understand that the common factor is, of course, yourself. Now, a lot of times, especially in the world we live in, we're literally trained and programmed to make ourselves the blame for what's happened and what continues to happen. We must think of these sort of events, even if they span an entire lifetime, as that gentle knocking at the door of life saying to you, open up, see the truth of who and what you are. And that's why often we will keep repeating the same experience until we're finally willing to accept whatever that underlying theme was, whatever it's pointing to. You know, in my life, believe it or not, it was always about not feeling that I was part of humanity. I always felt separate from humanity. You know, when I was a young child, I was deemed to be far brighter than anyone else around me. That may seem on one hand to be a really great thing to have happened, but I gotta tell you, it was difficult in a lot of ways because when I was very young, I felt alienated. In kindergarten, as I sat in the corner reading encyclopedias, and not junior encyclopedias, but Encyclopedia Britannica, the teacher and then the principal, they called in my mother and they said to my face that they felt that there was something wrong with me. And until grade 5, I believed that there was something wrong with me. I was always bored in class. I never wanted to do what the other kids wanted to do. And there was something wrong with me. It was programmed right in. And in the same way, you too have been programmed. Programmed that there are things that you should have in life, things that you should not have, experiences that you should have and experiences that you should not have. situations that you should have to deal with, and ones that you shouldn't. I'm here to tell you today that life is limitless. The directions are limitless, and there are no should or should not. Just choices and the universe's response to those choices. Living in this world we live in today, living in this society we're in, we are very likely to forget about ourselves. We can lose ourselves through drugs. We can lose ourselves through alcohol. We can lose ourselves through Netflix. We can lose ourselves through Facebook. In other words, you can lose yourself or subsume your consciousness to nearly anything. The reason being is you are part of everything. And that melding is a natural process that occurs, and you have to be on guard for it from a conscious level when it comes to subsuming your consciousness to things that ultimately are not going to serve you long term. Now, I'm not advocating when you're on your journey that you need to give up whatever it is you take or do for any reason. That's not what this is about. This is not about a judgment on anything. This is about a clarity of being and a willingness to accept life on its face. And the best way to do that is to develop some faith. To understand, no matter what's happened to you, no matter what you have done, you are insanely loved by all of creation. You are surrounded by fellow members of humanity who love you, even if you can't see them directly. Do you know, I stayed at monasteries all over the planet, to be honest. Monasteries in Tibet, which were some of my favorites, Thailand, in India, Japan, China, temples in the Middle East, ashrams, and in all of those, there was a simply monumental number of people, myself included, whose purpose in every day was to make a period of time to meditate for the well-being and good of all of humanity. To pour out love to every single member of the species. It doesn't take knowing someone to love them. You do know them already when it comes right down to it. All it takes is a willingness to love. And it doesn't matter the response that we get when we choose to love. It doesn't matter whether the person is willing to receive the love or not receive the love. Love can't not be received. The vibration it produces expands and fills all of the cosmos. It is the core vibration of life itself. There is no way to take a wrong step on this journey. But if you want to see the signs more clearly, if you want to know the road a little better, if you want to know where to turn, you just must learn to make sure that your choices are coming from the highest, purest place within you. Choices devoid of fear. Choices devoid of guilt. Choices devoid of the idea that you're not worthy. Because I'm here to tell you right now that there is not a person on this planet that is not worthy for eternity. There is not anything that you can do, there's nothing that you can experience that makes you less or less valuable than anybody else, no matter what the system may try to convince you of. There is no time and no place where you don't have available right now all the love of creation. Because it is you. You're part of it. It's manifesting that being that you would call you right now. It's living the experience with you, and it is loving you wholly and purely, just as you are. Last but not least, if you want to walk the road most effectively, returning, as I said, to that childlike state. Understanding that you're here to have fun. Even if you're stuck in a job that you don't particularly enjoy or that's sapping you, take time every day to do one thing that's truly loving towards yourself. And one of the things that we can do that pays off the best, that has the most residual and resounding effects, is to be willing to change the way that we think about ourselves, to make that the loving thing that we do, to wake up in the morning and be grateful that we are who we are, to be grateful that we've experienced what we've experienced, and we're still here. We still have life. We still have another day. Much love, namaste. Have a beautiful Sunday night. I hope we speak again very soon, and you know me, we're going to. Take good care of yourselves, and know that we are here for you if you need. Again, all my love. Good night.